And Jay Herring is the author of the book, The Truth About Cruise Ships. A cruise ship officer survives the work, adventure, alcohol, and sex of ship life. Good morning to you.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
You remember the Love Boat, right?
It was practically before my time, but I tell you, it was like the ultimate commercial, the ultimate advertising for the cruise industry.
It was. Everybody believed that if they went on a cruise, a princess cruise or any cruise, that romance was going to strike, or at least a hot hookup, I would guess, right?
Yeah, and some passengers would come on the ship and say, "Hi, I'd like to speak to Captain Steubing, please."
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't get it.
The captain ran around in his white uniform, and they broke everybody's heart all the time. Where was your cruise ship? Where did you work?
I worked for Carnival Cruise Lines,
Yeah.
and I was on a number of different ships. They do it by contract. So my first 8-month contract, I was on 3 different ships.
Let me ask you a question that's not related to romance, but why in the news lately, it seems like every couple months do we hear a story about somebody falling off of a cruise ship?
If it happens, it almost never escapes the news, the media, right?
Yeah.
And, most of the times these things happen because passengers are drinking too much or just doing, silly things that just, not watching out for their safety. But, in general, cruise ships are so safe. They're very safe. Almost nothing ever happens on them.
Well, that's the funny part. You don't hear about people falling off of hotel railings.
Right.
But for some reason they must be lured by the sea, or maybe it's not turbulent. These ships are like giant floating cities.
Yeah, no, it's nothing. It's no safety issue. The railings are very high. It's not like you slip through the bars on the railings or any of this thing.
Maybe they're going out there like Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic and standing on the front and saying, "I'm the king of the world."
Right. One time there was a guy that fell off, and he turned out to be a Navy SEAL, and everyone thought they didn't even know he was missing until the next day. And they weren't that far from Miami. He ended up swimming back to Miami using the lights of Miami as a beacon.
Wow.
In the middle of the night, yeah.
Maybe he just felt brave, and said, "I'm going to take a little swim here."
I guess. Those Navy SEAL guys, you watch out for them, right?
I would say so. Now, they have cruises now devoted to specific topics, like singles cruises, or do they have nude cruises?
I tell you what, my wife was on a nude cruise.
She was?
She worked on board. Yeah.
Okay.
And so what happened is a nudist colony chartered the ship, and I wasn't there, but like I said, my wife was, and she worked in the casino. And, the crew really didn't want to see all these naked bodies.
No, I wouldn't think so. Well, it would be selective, probably.
Yeah, to be honest, they weren't Victoria's Secret models, right? We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And so one of the casino managers was dating the refrigeration engineer. And they got him to make it really cold in the casino so that the passengers would cover up with their towels, right?
Yeah.
And that worked for about a day until the couple complaints came in and they had to race back up.
Was there more romance on board between the employees of the ship or the ship and, the guests and each other? Or actually, the other question I want to know, too, is if you work for a cruise ship, are you allowed to hook up with a passenger like they did on Love Boat?
No, maybe in the old days there were no specific rules against it, but these days you can get fired for it, and they fire people all the time for doing that.
Did they?
Go ahead.
How'd they catch them?
Well, if ship security sees you go inside a passenger's cabin and you have no business being in there, then they come knocking on the door, and if you're in there, then you might get fired.
What are you doing in 428 with Mrs. Robinson, right?
Exactly.
And then they make you walk the plank, right?
Yeah, you're done. They'll if they know you're going to get fired, they will quarantine the crew to their cabin until the next port.
Wow. Cruise ship jail.
Yeah, pretty much.
What about amongst the crew? You're out at sea together for long periods of time. There must be it would be natural, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for the crew, you just want to be with someone, and the ship is this closed environment, so everyone knows what's going on, and it's like the ultimate small town.
With a lot of booze.
Lots of booze. I tell you, alcohol is practically mandatory at sea. This alcohol, because for the crew, there's just not much else to do. And it was so cheap. We could get $1 Coronas in the crew bar every night, right?
Yeah.
And then, for the passengers, they're on vacation. And if you drink, you're going to drink when you're on vacation, and probably more than usual. Why not?
Were you single at the time?
I was, and it was perfect. I don't know how you do it any other way.
So you had a good time.
Oh man, it was probably one of the best times of my life.
How long did you do it?
I was there for 2 contracts, about 2 years, I guess. The first contract maybe 8 months, the second one about 7 months.
In what part of the world?
And so I was sailing, out of the States. So I was for a while there. I was sailing to the Bahamas or up to the Canada, Eastern and Western Caribbean. The Cozumel, Jamaica, Grand Cayman, these kinds of places.
You talk in the book, The Truth About Cruise Ships, about a Lithuanian girl in the preface. Did you meet lots of internationals on board?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the great thing about being American working for Carnival is that maybe 1% of the crew is American. And, when you travel someplace, a lot of times you want to see the buildings and the architecture, but also you probably want to see the culture. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, as a crew member working on a ship, it was like all of this culture comes to me. It all comes to you and on the ship. So it was great. And so for the Lithuanian girl, we had been dating for about a week. And one night she said, I want to show you something. And she hands me these pictures. And I'm looking through the pictures, and I said, okay, what am I looking at? She said, well, that's my daughter, and that's my husband. And I said, you mean ex-husband? She said, no, we're still married. He works on a different ship. And it just, talk about shocking, right?
Yeah.
And, I broke it off that night, but there was so much drama that went with that, because, we still saw each other all the time. We're on this cruise ship, so you still see each other.
Nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what is the wildest thing? I know you get asked this question probably a lot, but we presume wild things go on board cruise ships. And were there any sort of ones that stand out in your mind as particularly outrageous?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So there was talking about themed cruises.
Yeah.
There was, in contrast, stark contrast to the nude cruise, was the Christian cruise. And I was on that cruise, and the idea was, this company chartered the whole ship, and the idea was to turn it into an environment free of sin, right? So gambling is a vice, so the casino was closed. Mm-hmm. Drinking is a vice, so the bars didn't serve alcohol. The normal entertainers didn't work. Because they brought their own Christian entertainment, and so a lot of the crew had some time off, which they almost never get, right? We usually work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so while the passengers were studying the Bible, the crew were drinking and partying even more because they didn't have to work the next day.
Pretty good deal there. Did you run into any celebrities while you were on board?
No, I never did. I never got to do that. But I know that some of the theme cruises they do, they'll do the Rusty Wallace NASCAR cruise, or I think they did a Tim McGraw cruise. So those, if you're into celebrities, that would be great to be a crew member on one of those.
Sometimes cruise ships have a reputation for being dirty, and I don't mean sexually dirty, I mean physically dirty. Sometimes you hear about people getting food poisoning and that sort of thing, and just the fact that so many people go through a confined area. Did you find that to be the case?
Generally, no, but I did, it's kind of like as we talked about earlier, when people fall off the ship, you always hear about it.
Yeah.
And so the norovirus is that stomach bug flu, right? That 24-hour bug flu. And so whenever that hits a cruise ship, the media knows about it. Everyone knows about it. And I was actually on a ship when that happened. And I tell you, it was not a lot of fun because, especially for the crew, we're already pretty short-staffed, working 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. So if you lose even 10% of your workforce, it's just crippling. Everyone's working that much longer to cover for the people that get sick, right?
So if you're a man or a woman and you think you're going to go on a cruise and have a flash romance with one of the seamen or one of the women that works on board, you can forget about it because by rule they're not allowed to be with you.
They're not allowed to be with you, but I will say it still happens.
Still happens.
It still happens, yeah.
And give us advice then in the last 30 seconds that we have. If somebody wants to go find romance on board a cruise ship, what should they do?
Probably the best place is you get to with the other passengers that sit at your dining table, because what they do is they intentionally seat people that are similar to you. If you're single, they'll sit single people together. If you're married with kids, they'll try to sit you with other couples that are married with kids. Mm-hmm. So probably look to the passengers in your dining room for probably the best place.
And so wear your best duds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dress sharp.
Where can we get your book?
You can get it on Amazon, and you can also read the first chapter at my website, which is thetruthaboutcruiseships.com.
Thetruthaboutcruiseships.com is also the name of the book. A cruise